Think about the device you're watching this on right now, or maybe the coffee in your mug, the clothes you're wearing. Chances are, pretty much all of it spends some time on a massive container ship. Today, we're diving into a really radical idea to clean up this absolutely vital industry, powering these giants with hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. But is it a clean energy dream, or just an impossible engineering nightmare?
I mean, that's the big question, right? The very engine of our global economy is also a massive polluter. The world is demanding a change, and it's putting the entire shipping industry at this huge crossroads. Reinvent itself or keep fueling the climate crisis?
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the scale of the problem. Then, we'll get into the big promise of hydrogen. After that, we got to get real about the massive hurdles. We'll also look at the pioneers already making waves. And finally, we'll chart the path forward.
All right, so first things first. Before we can even talk about a solution, we really need to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the challenge we're facing. You see, the shipping industry is absolutely essential, but it runs on heavy, dirty fossil fuels. Because of that, international bodies like the International Maritime Organization, or the IMO, are pushing for some pretty drastic emissions cuts. We're talking aiming for net zero. And this isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a full-on race against time for the entire industry.
So, if the old dirty fuels are on the way out, what's next? Well, this is where hydrogen comes in, the universe's simplest element, and maybe, just maybe, shipping's clean energy champion. Now, here's a crucial point. Not all hydrogen is created equal. What we're talking about here is specifically green hydrogen, and this is so important. It's made using renewable energy, think wind or solar, to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. What that means is, from the moment it's made to the moment it's used, it's a truly carbon-free fuel.
And this is where the magic really happens. Look at this comparison. When you use hydrogen in a fuel cell to generate electricity, the only, and I mean only thing that comes out of the exhaust is pure water vapor. That's it. No CO2, no soot, no nasty air pollutants. It is about as clean as you can possibly get.
Okay, so if it's so perfect, why isn't every single ship on the ocean already using it?
Well, as you can imagine, this is where the dream collides with a very, very complex reality. Let's break down the 3 towering hurdles that stand in the way.
The first, and maybe the biggest engineering challenge, really boils down to one simple word: space. Storing hydrogen on a ship is incredibly difficult. Hydrogen is the lightest element in the universe, which sounds like a good thing, right? Well, not exactly. It's super light, but it's not dense at all, and that means it takes up a massive amount of room. To get the same amount of power as one tank of diesel, you'd need nearly 4.5 times the space for liquid hydrogen, and for compressed gas, a staggering 18 times more space. On a ship, space is money, so that is a huge economic hit.
This chart is really fascinating because it breaks down the trade-offs. You see diesel fuel up there, our baseline, with its incredible energy density. Then you have compressed gas, which requires immense pressure. Liquid hydrogen has to be kept cryogenically cold. We're talking minus 253 degrees Celsius. And then you've got solid metal hydrides, which are just way too heavy. None of these options even come close to the convenience of diesel.
So, okay, even if you could find the space, you have to make sure it's all safe. And hydrogen, well, it behaves very differently from the fuels we're all used to. It's a whole different beast.
This quote from an expert at DNV really drives the point home. If hydrogen leaks, it doesn't just make a puddle on the floor. It can shoot out in a high-speed, invisible jet and form these flammable clouds. Managing that kind of risk, it requires a whole new level of engineering and safety protocols.
So the bottom line is this: hydrogen is a teeny tiny molecule that's really hard to contain. It ignites with incredible ease, and over time, it can even make the steel of the ship's structure brittle and weak. You can't just pour it into existing systems. The whole ship, from the tanks to the pipes, has to be custom-built just to handle it.
And that brings us to hurdle number 3. Let's say you design the perfect, safe hydrogen ship. Great. Now, where does it refuel? This isn't just about one vessel. It's about building a global network. And that leads us to the monumental challenge of scale and cost.
Yeah, let's talk about money.
Right now, green hydrogen is incredibly expensive. Even looking ahead to 2030 with some optimistic projections, it's still expected to cost nearly 5 times more than traditional fuel. And that's if you can even find it. There's just no global infrastructure for producing it at scale or for refueling ships and ports. We're not just talking about building a few new gas stations. We're talking about building an entirely new global energy network from scratch.
Okay, that all sounds pretty daunting, I know. But despite these towering challenges, the industry is not just sitting around. So let's look at the pioneers who are already forging ahead and proving what is actually possible.
This whole journey actually kicked off way back in 2000 with a small passenger boat in Germany. But fast forward to today, and we're seeing some major milestones. Things like the first ferry to run on liquid hydrogen in Norway, barges being retrofitted with these cool plug-and-play hydrogen power containers, and even successful tests of massive marine engines designed to run purely on hydrogen.
As of 2024, there are about 50 hydrogen-powered vessels out there, operating in some capacity around the world. Now look, 50 is a tiny drop in the ocean compared to the massive global fleet. But you have to think of each one as a floating laboratory, providing crucial, real-world data that is going to pave the way for the thousands of ships that need to follow.
So, where does all this leave us? We've got a really promising fuel, some massive challenges, and a handful of pioneers doing amazing work. What has to happen next to turn these experiments into a global standard? The path forward really seems to rest on 3 main pillars. First, we need clear international safety rules, so every ship and every port is playing by the same playbook. Second, a truly monumental investment in infrastructure for both producing green hydrogen and creating refueling stations at ports all over the world. And third, a relentless push on innovation to finally bring those costs down to earth.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Hydrogen is not a magic bullet. It is one of our best shots at a truly clean shipping industry, but getting there means we have to solve some of the toughest engineering, economic, and frankly, political puzzles of our generation.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. The technology, it's within our reach. But the real challenge here is human. Can we, as a global community, coordinate an effort of unprecedented scale to build this new hydrogen economy on the high seas? The answer to that question is going to determine not just the future of shipping, but the health of our oceans and the climate of our entire planet.